The scanner shrieked, security swarmed, and a 10-year-old girl screamed, "He's a soldier!" As her father, a decorated veteran with a prosthetic leg, was forced out of a theme park like a criminal. The crowd just watched, silent, compliant. But what happened next will shock even those who thought they'd seen everything. But first, let's go back to the beginning. The air conditioning inside Matt Keaton's truck barely cut through the burn in his chest. The mechanical whir of his prosthetic leg shifting as he drove sounded louder than usual, as if mocking him. Ellie sat silent in the back seat, her park map crumpled in her hands like a broken promise. Her eyes were red, but she refused to cry in front of her father. He noticed that, and it made something inside him twist harder. They parked outside a quiet ice cream stand off Route 90. Matt leaned against the hood, scanning the swaying palms and families buzzing around the little shop. Kids were laughing. Parents were snapping pictures. It was the kind of moment he'd fought to protect. And yet here he was, on American soil, treated like a threat. His mind kept flashing back to Todd Callahan's face, cold, smug, unflinching. He hadn't seen a man worried about safety. He'd seen someone drunk on authority, someone who wore his suit like a uniform, pretending it gave him the right to humiliate others. Matt had known real threats. He'd dragged bleeding men from bombed-out alleyways in Kandahar, patched tourniquets with belt buckles and prayer. He'd felt the thunder of enemy fire so close it rattled his soul. None of that scared him. But the look in Ellie's eyes, that stunned, betrayed look when her father was told he was dangerous, that did. He turned to her. "You okay, kiddo?" She didn't answer right away. Then, "Why didn't anyone say anything?" Matt knew what she meant. The dozens in line, the tourists, the parents. No one spoke up. They'd all looked away. A few had clutched their children tighter, as if Matt might erupt. He crouched beside her, his hand on her knee. People are afraid of what they don't understand, or they just don't want to get involved. But they saw you were hurt. They saw your leg. He nodded. Sometimes people see what they want to see. Sometimes they only see a problem. Ellie's lip quivered. "You're not a problem." Matt felt the heat sting his eyes. "I know, sweetheart, but today I let them make me one." She shook her head. "You didn't do anything wrong." He swallowed hard. "I didn't fight for medals, Elle. I fought so you could have a life where people do right, even when it's hard." She looked up. "Then what do we do now?" Matt stood slowly. He watched a jet carve a white scar across the sky and thought of his brothers in arms, men who never came home. He thought of the silence at the gate, of Todd's tone, and the way Ellie had curled tighter against him like a shield. "We make sure the next time someone gets treated like that," he said quietly. "They're not alone." Ellie blinked. "You mean we fight back?" Matt smiled, not the smile he wore for photos, but the one he used to give his squad before a jump, the one that said, "We're going in anyway." "Yeah, kiddo, but not with fists." He turned back to the truck, already opening the glove box. Inside, his old unit patch rested beside a folded American flag and a list of contacts he'd long ago promised never to call unless it truly mattered. Today, it mattered. Thrill Frontier's sprawling infrastructure, with its gaudy facades and tightly scripted corporate smiles, had never faced a force quite like the riggers. Their work wasn't loud. It didn't come with press conferences or protest signs. It came with torque wrenches, soldering irons, encrypted scripts, and a level of coordination honed under fire. They didn't just fix problems. They erased the possibility of repeating them. Each member moved with purpose. Jen Kim, the team's systems specialist, used a vendor badge and a fake maintenance order to gain access to the control hub behind Steel Falcon, the park's flagship coaster. Inside, blinking servers buzzed under fluorescent lights. She moved like a phantom, splicing in a diagnostic relay that rerouted every scanner's hardware signal through a new, untraceable sublayer, one that only she could access remotely. She wasn't just rewriting code. She was future-proofing it, locking out any tampering from overzealous middle managers like Callahan. Lopez, the mechanical guru, was in charge of physical infrastructure. He spent his days in grease-streaked coveralls, blending in with the rotating contractors that came and went with the season. Beneath the southern cyclone, he pried open a rusted panel and laid in a fresh wiring harness. When a park supervisor stopped by with a clipboard and a question, Lopez fed him a stream of technical jargon, so dense the man nodded, muttered thanks, and retreated. No one questioned Lopez when he worked. His hands were too sure, his eyes too sharp. You didn't interrupt a man with that kind of focus. Bear, real name Jonah Kravitz, handled logistics, security, and field cover. He memorized patrol schedules, intercepted deliveries, and ensured no one noticed the subtle patterns. A golf cart left unattended here. A rerouted janitorial shift there. The team operated under the radar because Bear bent the radar to accommodate them. He carried no tech, wore no obvious gear, but he was the reason the entire operation moved like clockwork. Matt, meanwhile, didn't hide. He walked through the park openly, day after day, dressed plainly, a visitor like any other. But he observed. He tracked the expressions of gate guards, the tone of guests being stopped, the patterns of behavior at every choke point. He wasn't just watching for errors, he was measuring how often the problem happened, how deep it ran. And every time he saw a kid flinch as their parent's prosthetic set off the alarm, every time he saw a war veteran forced to explain their existence like it was a threat, he took a quiet note. That data would matter later. The new scanner code was brilliant in its subtlety. The moment a guest with a verified prosthetic stepped through, the machine would perform a soft scan against a silent national database, not one maintained by the park, but one accessible through military APIs. If there was a match, it would illuminate a discrete green LED and play a barely audible chime, a simple D major triad, like a rising breath. No fuss, no alarm, just dignity. But it wasn't just the machines that changed. It was what they recorded. Each false positive tied to a veteran's ID, every unwarranted rejection, every degrading demand for explanation was now logged, time-stamped, and uploaded to a private drive accessible only to the park's board of directors, the legal department, and one anonymized email labeled Accountability Alpha. No headlines, no sabotage, just a quiet revolution of standards. On the 7th day, as the park lights glittered across the water and fireworks painted the sky, the riggers stood outside the gates in the shadows. No cheers, no thanks, just the deep satisfaction that comes from finishing a mission that mattered. Matt didn't smile, but his shoulders eased. For the first time in a long while, the weight shifted. And when Ellie slipped her hand into his, he felt it. Not vengeance, not pride, justice. They called it the salute heard round the web. It began with a simple clip, shaky phone footage captured by a teenager in cargo shorts standing in line at Thrill Frontier. The camera panned toward an older man approaching the gate, his gait unmistakable, fluid but mechanical. 2 carbon fiber limbs peeked from beneath his cargo pants. As he stepped forward, there was no screech of an alarm, no barking security, just a soft harmonic chime, followed by a calm voice projected from the scanner. "Welcome back, and thank you for your service." For half a second, there was silence. Then the people around him began to clap, hesitant at first, then insistent, swelling like a wave breaking against years of indifference. The veteran stopped, startled. He smiled, a quiet, broken thing, and nodded to the machine like it was an old friend finally remembering his name. By midnight, the video had 4.6 million views. By morning, 15 more had surfaced. Prosthetic users stepping through different entrances across the park, each greeted by that same respectful message. Wheelchair users, veterans, civilians with bionic limbs, they all received the same simple courtesy. Recognition without interrogation. Comment sections filled with disbelief and awe. Some wept openly in response. Others shared their own humiliations at airports, concerts, public buildings, anywhere they'd been treated as threats for simply existing. But now, at one of the most visible corporate entertainment properties in America, the tide had shifted. Thrill Frontier didn't issue a statement immediately. But the silence became its own scandal. Journalists descended. Was this sanctioned? A PR stunt? A hacker's protest? No one knew. The scanners were too precise, too consistent. They hadn't been vandalized. They'd been improved. 3 days in, the Sentinel Times published an expose. Anonymous sources confirmed that a group of veterans, former Army riggers, had embedded the upgrades across the park over a single week, without ever once violating a law or compromising public safety. The operation had been silent, surgical, and, most damningly, more ethical than the systems they replaced. The pressure cracked. Todd Callahan, whose face was by now a meme synonymous with bureaucratic cruelty, resigned. His photo from that day, tie loose, face flushed, ducking into a town car, became an icon of institutional failure. But that wasn't the headline. The real turning point came when Thrill Frontier's CEO, Margaret Greaves, stood before a sea of cameras and said the words that stopped a million scrolling thumbs mid-swipe. "We failed to honor those who've already given more than most of us can fathom." That changes now. Effective immediately, our security systems nationwide will include the Veteran Access Protocol, because no one who's served this country should ever be treated like a liability at our gates. And they didn't just say it, they proved it. A bronze statue was commissioned and installed just outside the main entrance. No plaque of names, no rank, no medals, just an unnamed soldier walking forward with a child in his arms, both looking ahead. The gate behind them is open. Matt stood before it that July, Ellie clutching a lemonade in one hand and his fingers in the other. The heat shimmered again, just like that day. But this time, when they approached the scanner, it didn't challenge him. It greeted him. A chime, a voice, a pause that carried weight. "Welcome back, and thank you for your service." The guard on duty didn't flinch. He simply nodded, a hand over his heart. Matt didn't speak, didn't need to. His eyes brimmed, and this time, he didn't fight the tears. Not of anger, not of grief, but of something rarer. Dignity, recognition, homecoming.